what I'm curious to know is that whether when you translated my books or others, do you feel the urge sometimes to rewrite the original, or you stick to the original and say, okay, here I limit myself?
I think the urge to rewrite only comes up when I feel like I understand what the author is trying to say, but it's not coming through. And that sometimes happens specifically with the differences between languages. I feel like there are certain statements one can make in Hebrew, and as an Israeli person, I read them and I get it. But I also have lived here for many years, and I sort of think not only in both languages, but I think in both cultures. And I know that an English language reader reading that statement would not take it the way it's meant. So that's an instance where I would maybe do a small rewrite, and I would always add a note in the margins for the author to look at it and confirm and approve and make sure everything is okay. I think with your book specifically, the only thing and I don't remember if I actually did this, but the only thing I maybe wanted to change was it's such an intense book, and it's such a punch to the gut. And I think sometimes I felt compelled to help out an English language reader and kind of say, okay, don't worry. It's okay. This is what we're trying to say here. Don't get scared, because there's a certain bluntness to Hebrew and to Israeli fiction that I think is part of what makes it so beautiful. And it's the unique flavor of Israeli fiction. And sometimes it requires a little bit of mediation. But I don't remember... because it sounds too rude or too aggressive to American eyes? Not necessarily rude or aggressive, but just so clear cut, as if it doesn't require any further explanations. And I think sometimes other cultures do require that. But honestly, I think in The Memory Monster, even if there were moments when I wanted to do it, I don't recall doing it, because I think the straightforwardness and the bluntness are the power of the book. So in fact, I think my main goal with translating this book was to not interfere with what the language was doing. There were even moments I remember during the editing process with Restless Books where, there were some lines pointed out where an editor might ask, should we change the phrasing here a little, make it more specific? And I said, no, like this specific line has to be very extreme, even in a way that might sound like a cliche. One line that comes to mind is when the protagonist talks about what the Nazis looked like and how, regardless of what they did, they looked really good doing it. And I think the line in Hebrew was, "Bo nikra layeled b'shmo," and then in English I said, let's call a spade. They look totally cool. Okay. And one of the editors was wondering if we should change that. Maybe let's call a spade is a little bit of a cliche. And I said, no, but to me, that's where the power of this line comes from, is that it's so straightforward and like unapologetic and not even trying to explain or interpret. It's just what it is. I find, and I understand it more now that you talk about trust and about not worrying so much about defining the book as you write it, but letting other people define it. I found working with you that you have a very light hand when it comes to editing. You don't give a ton of notes. Like you said, sometimes you'll question a certain word choice, but you're pretty easygoing with just letting the translation do what it does. I'm wondering if that was always the case for you. like the first time you had a translation?
I think it has much to do with my other profession, who is a lawyer, because I'm very much used to working with other people on texts, with other lawyers, with clients, and I understood it wasn't like this in the beginning, but as years passed and I became wiser, I think, I understood that you have some limit that you can edit others. I mean, you have to let the other person express himself in his style, and you cannot, put yourself on him and suppress his originality. And I understand, and I want it very much to be also your work, your creation, So I have to sometimes limit myself and take myself a step backward in order to vacate some place for you. And I think it's for the best for the good of the work, for the good of the translation and of the book.
It's definitely a wonderful experience for me to feel like it's a process that we share, and you have sometimes you have questions or suggestions, but it's not like being having doubt cast on my work at all times, which sometimes does happen working with authors, and I understand where it comes from, but it's definitely more fun this way. I think it's also probably a good attitude for relationships in general.
Yeah, you're right.
Not trying to dictate how the other person expresses themselves.
Yeah. Being married for, I don't know, for ages now. So it's also an experience of, of the wisdom that comes with age. Yeah.
Yeah.